Hi guys, Togo here with a new video, and this video will be a class tuning video, patch note for 1st of March or today for NA. We're Tuesday right now in EU. For us it will be tomorrow, and I think it's today afternoon for us that they have some kind of change. I don't know, to be honest. I'm not good at time zones, but it is for tomorrow for us. And there's a few changes, a lot of outcries here and there. People are like complaining about a few nerfs, a few buffs, a few things, and I'm gonna try to explain my point of view. And I'm kind of hopeful for 10.0.7 because that patch is a bit like on the smaller side. But like always, timestamps below whenever I'm talking about a class or a spec. Mostly class because again it's easier for me to put timestamps for classes. But anyways, let's start right away. But before we start, please subscribe to the channel if you like PvP content. We're doing solo shuffle matches, guides, patch notes, discussion videos, meta videos, tier lists, everything around PvP retail. And I have also a second channel that is based around classic. So if you want to have more classic videos, please do subscribe to that channel as well. We're doing hardcore warlock PvP video, etc, etc, etc. Now let's start right away with some PvE tuning here and there. So blood, the TKs have 3% more damage. They do like those 3%. Doesn't affect us in PvP. Holy Paladin Light of Down healing increased by 10%. It is not that big, but Holy Paladin do have some talents for Light of Down being a bit better. But the problem is, you're not focused on Light of Dawn as, like, let's say in Shadowlands, where you had like 2 stacks of those Empyrean Legacy procs. So whenever you're doing a Word of Glory, that Light of Dawn will be in an increased value, spitting out like whenever you're doing a Word of Glory, and you had like 2 stacks, and you could basically also just have 2 hammers, so you could have 4, I think, in total. But right now you only have 1, so you're not very based around my Light of Dawn. And there is like 2 paladins, which is melee, the melee wings paladin, or the ranged caster paladin, which is basically hard casting spells, which is not the best, especially in solo shuffle. I don't think it changed anything. Protection paladin, this change might affect 3v3 more and 2v2 too. Greater judgment's bonus to your next holy power ability against the afflicted target increased to 40%, was 20%, so it will do more damage. I'm not really afraid of the damage, I'm afraid of everything that comes after. We have also Hammer of Wrath damage increased by 30%, again, damage which is also quite scary. Like, let's say 30% of Hammer of Wrath is noticeable, but I don't know if it's like the thing that is going to make Protection Paladin very strong. And Hammer of the Righteous damage increased by 20%. I think it's like, in social, full problem is Protection Paladin, they fight versus themselves, so it's a bit hard to judge. And often not, whenever I am facing Protection Paladins in social, I do not like those games. Those games are like 5-minute games, and it is a coin toss if the Protection Paladin actually blesses you with all kinds of defensives, or if the Protection Paladin just forgets it and just you get destroyed. So I don't know, I don't really like it. My suggestion for Protection Paladin is to see it as a healer and make it queue with other healers, because basically you're a healer, but then your games will be faster. And I know it's very frustrating though, because you're not a real healer, but you do have tools though. So I don't know. Maybe forget about my suggestion. I'm just thinking out loud, but it's not like I'm hating tanks in PvP. I just feel like it's unfair to face them most of the time, and whenever it's garbage, it's unfair to have them in your team. So it's very hard to actually balance PvP side of things for tanks. So I guess World of Warcraft, or at least Blizzard, will never have the right mindset around tanks in PvP. And a lot of games actually do that. Like, for example, Warhammer Online had tanks that were very useful in PvP without making them super obnoxious to face or having with you. So I don't know. I think it's just a mentality thing. And World of Warcraft cannot make them work without making him OP or just straight up bad. So I don't know. Anyways, Shaman, Elemental Shaman. we have 4 changes which is not affected by PvP, but I'm still going to discuss about it because PvE, maybe some people like to watch PvE things. So lightning bolt damage increased by 10%, lava burst increased by 6%, earth shock by 6%, elemental blast by 6%, and that is because in PvE I did see the numbers. Elemental shaman is not el famoso, but in PvP it is el famoso, so better that they are not going to increase lava burst damage. But the next changes are affected by for PvP, so ice fury damage increased by 80%. Now, I don't think it hurts that much. It will now make you maybe kick an Ice Fury, but after that, whenever I see an Ice Fury, I just let them cast it, because if I'm kicking Ice, the problem is they will just lava burst in my face, cast it, and that's not really what you want. And maybe the only thing that you can do versus Ice Fury is just stun it, or fear it, or whatever. But now maybe it will give you an incentive to interrupt it. It does quite a lot of damage now, with maybe with 80% increased. And what's good is also the frost shock actually generating 14 maelstrom, so you will have an easier time to have earth shocks or elemental blasts. And frost shock again increased by 15% for elemental only, so you will be able to do 50Ks with frost shock if my calculations are correct. If you're doing like a crit, I think 50k is really obtainable. Yeah, I think it could be strong. It will open up for different builds. You cannot go for the standard build with Ice Fury because you will lose a few things. But if you go for Ice Fury, I guess you're going to remove Stormkeepers maybe, or you're going to remove the Flame Shocks, like the fire elementals coming faster, for example, with the crit on Flame Shock. So I don't know, we'll see. There's a few things that you can test. I think I'm going to test it once it's up. It's actually looking interesting. I just want more build variety, and I'm always happy to see people specs getting buffs on multiple off builds, like multiple builds that are not played right now but are quite niche. I like that because then you have more like options, and more options is always more fun in PvP, in my opinion. That's why Arms Warrior is very fun. You have bleed build, you have spear build, you have like for example Fury, you have like the bloodbath build, you have the onslaught build, you have for example I don't know, man. Enhancement Shaman has also a few builds, but problem is it's just too squishy. But that's it. Anyways, let's talk about PvP. We have now a increase on the bonus stamina from the trinket set, so 40%. It is going to give you roughly between 15k and 30k HP, depending on the class. Warlocks will get 30k, DKs will get 30k, for example. While, for example, a warrior will get 15%, like 15k, like an arms warrior, for example, a BM hunter as well. So it will be significant, more easy for healers to heal, but the problem is it is only 1 GCD or 2 that you're going to soak. So it's not going to be dramatic. I think it is a good increase, but I think they can reliably just double it. Basically, if they double it, I think it would be better for PvP. They're not going to touch they're not going to touch dampening for some reason, which is good because Files games is fun. But I think if you're not touching dampening, you have to increase the staminas. The problem is, for me, I do not like having 1 million health season 2, man. That's not my thing. I do not like to have big numbers of health. That's why I really like classic TBC Warthog, where the HPs are quite normal, like it's normal. And then whenever it was like Kata, Mob, or even WOD, HPs were like crazy, man. And I like even Legion, like I remember Legion as well. And that's why there was also a stat squish. And I'm afraid that they will have to do a stat squish every expansion, and they have to think about how they are going to go around with those things. I just like to have small numbers, because then whenever you're doing a big number damage, for example 10k, which is very big in some expansions, it does feel right. Where right now you're going to probably in season 2 or season 3 hit a 300k chaos bolt, and it will be like it's only 20% of my HP. So I don't know. I don't really like it, but I know that for now it is a good solution. But I hope had actually hoped that it would be 80%. Then it would be like a 50k HP increase, which would be more noticeable, more like better for the healers and better just in general. But I don't think like that's the reason why people are leaving the game. If they are leaving, they might just reroll to DPS. I think just healers in general, you have like two specs that are very aggressive, and they can decide games. Then you have like fist weavers and you have disc priest, which basically by themselves they can kill people. While Resto Shaman are very close to it, but they have to cast a lot of things to be able to do that. And if they're kicked on their cast, they cannot heal. While, for example, if a Disc Priest is kicked on Shadow, he can still heal with Holy. And just in general, I think the overall solution would be that all healers can participate with damage somehow, some way. A Feral Affinity Restoration Druid should be able to bleed you out. A Resto Shaman should be able to do Lava Burst and Lightning Bolts and be scary whenever you're doing that. A Holy Priest should be doing Holy Fires, and you're actually going to chunk HP because it is a highly aggressive spell to cast, because if you're kicked, you cannot heal. So I feel like that you should buff all those things and make healers actually enjoyable. But the problem is, it's going to be a never-ending cycle. People do not like healing on DPS. So a Fury Warrior healing themselves for crazy amounts, Arms Warrior shielding themselves for crazy amounts, Havoc Demon Hunters leeching themselves for crazy amounts, Warlocks also drain lifing for a crazy amount. But the problem is, if you're giving all the damage to healers, you have to put defensives for DPS, because the damage will be too crazy. So it will be always like you're buffing the damage of healers, you'll have to buff the healing from DPS, and then you're nerfing the DPS from the healers, and then the healing from the DPSs are going to stay high, and then is going to be nerfed, and then again you will have to buff the healers DPS because it makes it more fun, and that's like a never-ending cycle, and you will never have a perfect balance between them. And that's why it's actually very hard to just slap extra damage to healers without slapping extra defensives for DPS. But that's my point of view around Blizzard's decision making. Now, I don't know if it's because of that they're stopping to actually buffing healers and like their DPS throughput and their offensive capacities. But yeah, let's see in 10.1 what they are going to do. I think 10.1.7 will be pretty much the retribution patch, which are going to be crazy. I think it's going to be S tier pretty easily. But I think it's going to be very fun for them. So I'm actually excited for all Retribution Paladins, me included. I'm a new main Retribution Paladin, like you know. I always played Retribution, always has been a fan, and I'm excited to play it. So Hunter, improved kill shot now increases kill shots critical damage by 15% instead of 25%. As a BM hunter, I never take improved kill shot, because it has no point. You only do it whenever you're like having someone at under 20% HP or something like that. So it's not even a high priority spell. My kill command does more damage, for example. So yeah, not really affected for BM hunter. Survival hunters and marksmanship hunters do feel that nerf, but instead of doing a 150k kill shot, you will do a 130k, which is not that bad, especially since they do get a nerf on razor fragments as marksmanship hunter for 10%, but they do get a big 15% increased damage on arcane shot, which is going to be feeling good because you're going to do a lot of arcane shots over the course of a match, and that will add up and do more damage than like a few kill shots per match, right? So it's going to be a good balance. I think it's an overall buff for marksmanship hunter, although the burst is going to be lower. I think the consistent damage and the damage profile, like they said, is going to get a shift, and it is going to be feeling better for them. They nerfed Brewmaster for some reason. I know that on the AWC they made it pretty good. On the ladder you have like 2 or 3 Brewmaster monks, which I think are alts from one guy that are doing very good. I think it's unwarranted. I know it's frustrating to play against, but I don't feel like it is the high priority to nerf a brewmaster. Especially the damage. I would nerf the defensive capacities and not the damage. I think the damage is alright. If tanks do damage but can die, I do not care. But right now you're nerfing the damage and they will just be there not dying. So I don't know. I do not like that change, but that's my opinion. Windwalker, Touch of Karma now redirects 105% of absorbed damage in PvP combat. I don't know why 5%, but it means that it will do more damage than what they receive. So if you're doing a 30k, it will do pretty much 36k. No, not 36k, but 33k, excuse me. Anyways, my calculations are bad. Doesn't matter. But it will do more damage. So basically what you're going to do is switch out of the Windwalker or have your healer dispel. The problem is in solo shuffle, people do not like to dispel for some reason. At least it feels like that whenever I'm playing my Arms Warrior. So what I'm going to do is just switch out of the Windwalker and not tempt the devil. It's very good because Windwalkers, they have little to no defensives. At least they have defensives, but they are very dependent on situations like port is nice, but whenever you're actually overextending, your port is going to be too far to actually port out. Your Touch of Karma was basically nothing. So this is going to be better. But again, if the healer is actually good, he just dispels the dot and they can just go on the onslaught versus the Windwalker. But anyways, that's a good change. At least a lot of people actually asked for that. I guess it could be even 200%. It doesn't really matter since it is dispellable. So depends on the healer. Rogue, that is a change that a lot of people were outcrying about. Hemotoxin PvP talent healing reduction effect reduced to 30% instead of 35%. My take is they will not take the PvP talent anymore. It will stay like this. I think it will be more healable though. So it means that Assassination Rogues, whenever they're doing their burst, you can basically heal through it a bit. Like for example, a warrior would do just a more strike. It would be the same because their wound poison is basically also 25%. I think they have a lot of great PvP talents, so I don't think they will fall out of S tier. But it will make them a little bit more easier to heal. And I know that some people were like saying, why are they not nerfing Assassination Rogue even more? Why this? Why that? The problem is they do not feel like Assassination Rogue is strong because of PvE. I think every time a PvE spec is incredibly weak, they do not get great buffs or great nerfs on PvP because they think like if in PvE on a boss they do little to no damage, why do they do more damage in PvP? And that's not a great asset to actually like great mindset to actually think about. I think Blizzard doesn't really know how to nerf Assassination Rogue without breaking the spec, because if you nerf Kidney Shot, you're going to make them worse than Subtlety and Outlaw, basically. And if they're nerfing Kidney Shot for Outlaw and Subtlety, you're basically making Rogue worse than, let's say, a Arms Warrior. But the Arms Warrior, because has Stormbolt, if your Kidney Shot would be a 4-second and Stormbolt is 3 seconds, what is the difference between them except 1 second? Of course you have Blind, of course you have Sap, of course you have poisons and such, but I think the best nerf that they can do for Assassination Rogue is removing Mind Numbing, first and foremost. I think they should also just switch like the talents out. I think the builds are not very interesting. People play with 4 poisons, unfortunately. Maybe nerf it to something else, or maybe have like a 50% value of those poisons whenever you're taking that talent. So let's say you have 2 poisons at 100% of value, and then your other 2 poisons will be at minus 50% of their value, like something like that. I think the damage is not like crazy high. Again, you're going to hate me in the comments. I think the damage of Assassination Rogue is not crazy high. I think everything around Assassination Rogues is crazy high. So the Kidney Shots, the Saps, the Blinds, the again Hemotoxin now nerfed, but basically they're not going to play that. They're going to play Disarm now, or they're going to play other PvP talents that are maybe a bit more interesting for them. They have Death Mark, they have wound poison, mind numbing. They have a slow, which is pretty crazy because they can also apply it from afar with just one click and they get a combo point out of that. You have a lot of ways to actually do damage and be useful. And yes, you die quickly. And yes, at lower MMR, they have some difficulties. But I think the better the player, the better the spec. And they should nerf it on some things that makes it very obnoxious to play against. The damage being high is not an issue because there is a lot of specs that actually do more damage than Assassination Rogue. I think the whole package is a bit too strong. So I think if they nerf the package a bit, just a bit, do not touch Kidney Shot because again, I want them to nerf Kidney Shot because I'm not a rogue, but I know that if they nerf Kidney Shot, they don't really have anything going for them except maybe Blind and Sap, which are both breakable in Soul Shuffle. Again, they're not going to balance around Soul Shuffle, but I think if they're actually balancing something, they should balance around mind dumping removal from that, for example, so that casters can actually have a fighting chance with Assassination Rogues, and all those kinds of stuff. But anyways, enough of Assassination Rogue. I think it's a straight nerf, but it's overall unchanged because they're going to switch a PvP talent to something even more useful in most cases, like Disarm. So I don't know. I feel like it's not going to be too much of a change. Outlaw Rogue Dispatch increased by 15% in PvP combat. That's interesting because the force set is actually very nice and you do some good damage, but it's not going to be enough to make them meta. I think they lack a few things which were in Shadowlands, but now is just not the case anymore. I don't think damage is the issue. I think the issue is just the overall package being that much worse than Assassination Rogue. That is what it is. Shaman. So anyone knows that I'm an Enhancement Shaman player, although I do suck on it, or at least it feels like it. I can win one day 200 CR and then the other day I will lose 300 CR for some reason. I don't feel like I'm playing worse. I don't feel like the games are going worse, but it is just like matchup dependent, and sometimes you have healers, they don't know how to heal you as an Enhancement Shaman, or the games are very like late into dampening and your healing is just a non-factor, so you don't have defensives anymore, and that's the main problem. And here I feel like they're like missing on a lot of things. We are not asking for more damage, man, and we're asking for more damage but different. We feel, at least I feel, if you put Ascendance at 2 minutes, it would be a lot further to play. I think at 3 minutes Ascendance is quite bad. Deeply Rooted Elements is so boring to play because sometimes it just doesn't pop, and then you have like a dead PvP talent, a dead talent. I think you need basically 6 PvP talents to make it a normal class, and you only have 3 PvP talents, so you have to choose between damage, survivability, utility, disruption. If you had 6 PvP talents, you would be a good class. But the problem is, right now you don't have that, so you are a semi-good class. And this is interesting because they're nerfing the Converging Storms talent, which basically whenever you're using a Crash Lightning, you're going to have a buff on your Storm Strike depending on the amounts of people you're touching. I think it's capped to 6 targets, I think. But basically you're making you stronger versus pet classes. Like for example, PM Hunters, whenever you're doing a Crash Lightning on them, with all the pets, you're doing some sick damage on Storm Strike or Wind Strike. The problem is you're not playing versus only like pet classes. So that nerf is a nerf versus specific comps and specific matches, and a non-factor on specific other comps and other enemies. So I think overall, I understand why they're doing it, because with those buffs plus this, it would make Storm Strike hit or crit, excuse me, for 100k. But right now, I think it's an okay nerf, I guess. It's an okay thought process with where we don't want to break Enhancement Shaman. And Lava Lash increased by 15% is quite nice, because again, if you're doing a mastery build with Lava Lash, you can crit already for 130k. But the problem is, you're not going for mastery builds, you're going for haste builds most of the time, and you're going for Stormstrike build because you want to be able to expand Maelstrom for healing. That's the main problem. So I don't know if we're going to play with Lava Lash. I think playing with Lava Lash is very greedy, but it depends on a lot of factors. So again, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Stormstrike and Windstrike getting 50% instead of 30% is interesting, but that's not what we need. What we need is actually defensives. Please give us Astra Shift being usable whenever you're getting stunned, because whenever you have no trinkets and no Astra Shift, you are dead. Please make our healing not as affected by dampening, because that's our defensive. If you want us to have a defensive which is around healing, like a lot of hybrids do, please do buff our healing towards a point where dampening is not in effect. Or give us like an extra, like give us Chain Harvest back. I know I was a hater in Shadowlands. I did not like Chain Harvest. I did not like the lore aspect. I did not like that it was a shadow school spell and such. But overall, that's the thing that we need. We need a spell that we can press and we do damage and healing at the same time, and a big heal and a big damage, so we can actually be scary but also be something useful for our team. So we can press Chain Harvest when we want to heal our Arms Warrior, for example, or press Chain Harvest when we want to heal ourselves, or press Chain Harvest to just do damage. But right now we have to choose between healing and damage, and what we actually do is probably heal 80% of the time and 20% damage of the time with Elemental Blast, for example, which is for me a very boring spell. If we could just get rid of it and put Chain Harvest instead, I would be happy. But anyways, that's my take, maybe a bad take, but anyways. Enhancement Shaman is still probably D or C tier, depending on how you see a tier list. The damage is going to be nice. I'm critting between, like Stormstrike, you have like it's a lot of variance. You crit between 30k and 80k depending on converging storms, depending on your burst, depending on a lot of things. And I think with this buff it will take it to maybe a 100k Stormstrike, depending on your overall buffs and overall self buffs, I guess. But I feel like we lack a few things, which is probably defensives, man. If we just have defensives, we would feel a lot better. Maybe have an anti-root for using Maelstrom. So whenever you're using Maelstrom, you get an anti-root on yourself or anti-slow on yourself for 1 or 2 seconds. And that would be making Enhancement Shaman a bit more mobile, a bit more again, like a mad dog. But right now you're just a dog and you're getting put down pretty much. That is my take on Enhancement Shaman. Fury Warrior, you also know on my channel I do take Fury Warrior soul shuffle matches and also PvP videos and PvP guides, and I think I like those changes. Although execute, again, we just lack a talent that actually gives us incentive to do executes. I just feel like if you have time to do Rampage is going to be a lot more useful than execute. And I really like, again, if you're playing vanilla, TBC or Warlock, whenever you're doing execute, you're feeling the damage. But right now you do not feel the damage. You feel some damage, but you feel like if I was pressing Rampage, I would do more damage. But anyways, Rampage increased by 15%, execute by 10%. Rampage by 15% is actually interesting because I do crit between again, between 60k's Rampage in total and up to 80k. So whenever you get 15%, you will do probably around 100k Rampages, like with those 4 strikes. That could be very interesting, but I don't think it's enough to make it like competitive. I think it's just like damage profiles and the defensives and how it works. All of this just needs a rework. I think Fury, Enhancement Shaman, Frost DK, Retribution Paladin, which are getting it, Affliction Warlock, Demonology Warlock, all those specs needs a full-on rework, and I hope they do that for next expansion. Do not get a new class, just give us some reworks on specs to make it more better or more enjoyable to play while not making them OP. I do not want to have OP specs. I just want to have competitive specs. Anyways, that's my take. I think overall the meta hasn't changed at all. Assassination Rogues is still S tier. Shaman, Enhancement Shaman is still tier. So tier. Fury Warrior is still tier. Basically, Arms Warrior is just that much better. Windwalker is going to have more defenses. Brewmaster is just going to get nerfed because someone is going to be very good on Brewmaster. For some reason, they add some thought process behind it instead of putting effort on other specs or other classes. Hunters here, you have a bit more damage on Arcane Shot. That might be some kind of change on the tier list depending on how much damage you do on Arcane Shot. The stamina increase is quite nice, but I think it's not enough. Elemental Shaman has maybe more build variety in PvP. Protection Paladin might be strong in 3v3 and in 2v2. I think in social for still you are facing versus yourself, so I feel like it's not that good. Holy Paladin, I think it's unchanged, and Blood Decay is a non-factor. So thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, and we will catch each other very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.